Why don't we move right to Elder Affairs? I think we've burned up our 5 minutes for Capital Budget Committee comments, unless anyone has anything pressing tonight. Michael, Ralph, nothing?
I have something I'd like to talk over with a group when we're all done.
Okay.
So Brian, if I can, since we're first on the agenda, thank you very much to everyone on the committee for putting us first on the agenda.
Thanks for joining us.
So with us tonight is Diana Karcher. She's the vice chair of Cohasset Elder Affairs Board. And Nancy LaFosse is the director of Cohasset Elder Affairs. And I am a board member of Cohasset Elder Affairs. Tana Carlson is the chairwoman of Cohasset Elder Affairs. She could not attend. So I'm here in her place to the extent that I've been directly involved with capital budget on the vans in the past. So with that, we had put in, and it's been on the list for the last number of years, which is the van. We call it the wheelchair van because it does carry a wheelchair. But more importantly, the van is also primarily for those with canes and walkers. About 2-3 years ago, we did receive the 2 vans from capital budget. I believe it was like 2019. And those vans were the 9-passenger vans, which then once we received, we had to have it outfitted with the ADA compliant rails and holders to bring people up and get them in. And those vans have been working extremely well. In fact, because they were the new vans, we kind of have a really good maintenance program with those where Nancy, as the director, has been monitoring mileage, taking it into the dealership on a routine basis. So we've been really on top of that. Richie Gibbons is another employee of Elder Affairs who kind of handles a lot of that stuff for Nancy to make sure that the capital equipment that we have is has some sort of maintenance log and maintaining what we have to make sure that it lasts longer than its usable life. So what we've had with you folks has been that one van that we were looking to replace. And though we had talked about it prior to COVID, obviously with the COVID coming in 2020 and 2021 still with us here, there hasn't been obviously that high demand on transportation, though we have started transportation. So we have been using products in limited use. I think that if this is in the new fiscal budget, it gets approved in May, we hope. Then by the time the procurement process happens, it'll be late into the year, probably October, November before we would take possession of it, is my guess. So we would start utilizing it, say, January of 2023. So we feel that at that point, we'll have that need. The current van that we have is a 2009, is 13 years old. It has 66,000 miles on it. It's beyond its useful life. So this is a brand replacement, not a fleet extension. And with that, we had gone out for bid on a number of items. Back in 2020, we actually got a solid quote. And in 20 on one specific van, which that came in that range that you see in the budget there, 64,000. There was a rebate that would come back to the town, so the balance would be 58,000. In 2021, we took a look at a couple of different vans, and the range of those were 62 to 73,000. So, Michelle, if you can let me share my screen for a minute, I can give you guys a quick look at those.
I have the ability.
And let's see here, share screen. So if you can see, this is the existing van here. This is what we call the wheelchair van. So you have the access with folks with canes and walkers that would come in through the main entrance here. Then the wheelchair lift is in the side. And this is the back of the van as well, and the front of the van. Currently, the problem we have with this van now is the top of this van, if you see that right-hand picture there, the roof leaks, and we've had it touched up down at Robin's Garage a couple of times. We took it to the actual place where we bought the new vans. They quoted like $2,500 to fix it. It doesn't have backup cameras, so the driver goes up somebody's driveway with this size van. They have a hard time backing up a lot of the narrow driveways in town. So that's another, $500 to $1,000 to get backup cameras in there. The other thing that we don't have is the shortwave radio, so that we can communicate with the driver back at the center. And we have virtually no air conditioning here. It barely comes on. So those are the primary issues with the van currently. The new vans, the reason why I gave you that range from 62 to 73, we said we put 66,000 in the budget. It kind of puts it in the middle. This would be a standard floor plan with the wheelchair in the back, as you can see. And they have different configurations where you could get something a little bit bigger. You can see the van in this photo. On the left side, it pops out a little. On the right photo, it pops out even more. So you have more wheelchair access if you want, with two in the back, and more seating access. So those are the kind of ranges that we would be looking at. With the current van, we do want to change the seating configuration. We do want to keep that the one wheelchair piece, as you would see in here. It's just the seating capacity we want to take a look at prior to making that final decision. A lot of what we do is when we go out to take people to different places, sometimes it's to get groceries. So we need places to put those as well. And where we have a lot more people with walkers, this van would be used a lot more with folks with walkers. So we want to make sure we have enough seating for those folks with walkers. And then also on the van, we would have quite possibly, besides the driver, maybe another assistant to help people get on and off the van. So does anybody have any questions on the capital side?
A handful of questions, Paul. First, just refresh my memory. The two smaller vans that we got, they were modified and we lost a bunch of seating capacity. Did we, at some point, I know there was a discussion about, providing, I don't remember if it was lift capability or wheelchair capability to those vans. Was that done on the other two?
No, a discussion was made to see if they could lift like the city buses where they go lower to the ground, but those aren't able to do that. No.
Okay. So right now we have no vans other than this one that is wheelchair accessible. Is that
correct? Yeah.
Okay. All right. And in terms of, in terms of the underlying vehicle here, recognizing that it gets modified for purpose and configuration, but in terms of the underlying vehicle, what is it? Is this is this one of just the bigger Ford Transports, or who actually makes the van before it's modified for this purpose?
Right. So it's very similar to the facility where we took it down in Attleboro. So yeah, so Ford makes the product, and it's an empty van, right? So it's kind of like the sped vans for the school. So you then take it to a third-party provider who modifies existing vehicles into configurations for handicap accessible transportation, whether it be for the sped in the school, or special needs, or seniors, that type of stuff.
Okay. So fundamentally, it starts life as a Ford Transit van, and it either stays with the box body or it gets popped out with a much larger box.
Right. So the van would be bought with the box body. We would go to them to say, we need, a 9-person, 1 wheelchair plus driver, or something like that. And they'll say, okay, this is the size van you need. They may also have product already on the lot that we could entertain a bid process from them as well.
Right. Okay.
So
Happened quite quickly.
yeah. So I'd like to have Nancy's let you know what we do at Elder Affairs and the folks that we transport. And Diana Karcher, she's been obviously with us for a long time. And volunteering. She's also been involved in nursing. She's been with the seniors for assistance for a long time, one of our van drivers as well. She also runs the pool, and so she's our neighbor as well at the center. So if those two can speak to, how we care for the seniors and what our needs are moving forward.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. In case you don't know me, my name is Nancy LaFosse. I'm the director at Elder Affairs. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak to you guys tonight and let you know about the need for the wheelchair accessible van. I just wanted to mention a little bit, in case you probably know a lot about the Elder Affairs, but maybe over the past year or so with the pandemic, you haven't heard much about us, except that seniors are the most vulnerable, and that we are taking care of our seniors. So I thought it might be important for you guys to know exactly what we've been doing over the past year or so. And so during this pandemic, we've been doing a lot. We've been providing the vaccination clinics have been going on at Wilcott Commons. We do nutrition. We've still been providing Zoom exercise classes, socialization, education to the older adults in our community. The following numbers I wanted to just share with you for 2021 that we've been able to offer to our seniors in town. We had 655 unique individuals serviced through Wilcott Commons, either through services, programs, or activities, which amounted to over 9,000 contacts with us. 80 clients were assisted with health insurance needs. We have 65 clients we assisted with outreach, which included SNAP, fuel assistance, mental health issues, home care, homelessness, the gamut. So we do provide a lot of services. Food was very big during the pandemic. We had 3,853 grab-and-go breakfasts and lunch that were serviced over the past year, 281 home-cooked meals delivered to the homebound in our community. We provided 367 rides to the store for errands and on medical appointments, and that's despite the fact that we had people not able to. We only had one person to the van or to the electric vehicle. So and a lot of offices were doing virtual. So the number is lower than we usually do, but we're expecting that to increase. We had 64 different programs we provided in person, via Zoom, inside Wilcott Commons, or last spring we even had the tent and we had everybody outside, which they seem to love a lot, which we have learned from that. We're going to do it again despite the pandemic. We will be offering more outside programming because it was so successful. I just wanted to mention that during the pandemic, our staff was especially proud of the fact that we did work together with the public health department and emergency management, and able to manning the COVID-19 community hotline. And we registered over 700 adults of all ages for the COVID-19 vaccination clinics that were held. So that was a really important and happy job that we were able to do. Just in closing, I wanted to say we now are turning our attention more towards the end of the pandemic. Hopefully we'll never have to say that word again in a few months, and we'll be able to get more and more people back to Wilcott Commons. And part of that is for people who they're so desperate for socialization. We want to have people in the building, but not only that, we want to have people outside. We have learned over the past year, people are anxious to get back onto day trips. And by providing a van that's wheelchair accessible, that people can come in with their walkers, the wheelchair canes, more and more people are just getting, they want to be out and about, but they may not be mobile. This is also for people who are handicapped under age 60, and we will be able to provide day trips for them. And we're anxious to do that. And we have learned that that's what they're looking forward to. So this replacement van would make a big difference, and I hope that you would consider it. And thank you for having us.
Thank you, Nancy. And
Diana, summary.
Diana can tell you that the biggest waiting list we have is outdoor bocce. So Diana, so Diana, jump in, yeah.
And interestingly enough, outdoor bocce also involves people that do need special transportation. They are using walkers I have one gentleman that's legally blind, and they do need to be. But I have to tell you, we have a great bocce team, so I'll just start from there. I am going to tell you that I also am 80 years old this year, and I've lived in this town for over 50 years. And I've driven school buses. I've worked in the medical department. I've worked for Harvard Pilgrim Health for 40 years doing different services, including training, and I run the swim center. I also am very much in favor of the senior center because I know how many people in town are over 65. And I also know how many people over 65 are extremely strong and resilient and happy. But they do at a certain point need a walker. They do at a certain point perhaps need a wheelchair and assistance. But that does not mean that they don't want to get out. They don't want to come and have lunch. They don't want to come and be able to listen to a program or partake in bocce. There, I have the same situation up at the pool. I have people that would like to come, that need to use a wheelchair, that need to have special modes of transportation to get to the pool to do swimming, which is extremely important for anybody that is of any age. So I can't tell you how much in favor I would be and appreciate if you could do this. I went down and took a look at the van. The van is really honestly archaic. It is old in years. It's not that old in miles, I agree. But the things that are needed are the things that right now are very important. And that is being able to use, I would say, more than one wheelchair. I'd like to be able to say that a wheelchair, 2 wheelchairs could get in. I also, being an ex-school bus driver for a long time, am in full favor of having a driver and perhaps having an attendant. If you know that you have a couple of people that need a ride and both of them are not capable of functioning too well themselves, it's important that somebody's there to help the driver. The backup lights are incredible. Try coming up my lane without backup lights. And most of Cohasset has many, many lanes and many, many streets that need that. So I'm all in favor of it. Anything that you can do to try to provide this, I'd be extremely, extremely grateful. And I know that as a board and as a senior center and as a town, we're not a town that goes running out to get the Cadillac, even though I love mine. But you go out to get the best product and you go out to get what's best for you. And I agree very much with Nancy. Rich does an incredible job and the team does an incredible job of making sure that they're handled well. We're so lucky that we have Wayne Robbins in town that can do something quickly. There are so many things that are a plus for this. So if at all possible, I would really honestly be all in favor of it.
That's helpful. Thanks. I guess one question I have that leaps to mind on the application, there's a mention of a potential grant, which is the MassDOT Community Transit Grant Program that you'll be applying for, I guess, in April, which could possibly pay up for 80% of the cost of the van. Is that like a highly competitive, unpredictable process, or is that something that's basically, there and we just have to apply for it to receive it?
That's Nancy's question. I think Nancy's frozen. So I know that we just text her to say you're.
Yeah,
Nancy's moving. I don't know,
actually,
Nancy, can you hear us?
Oh, there she is. Are you unfrozen, Nancy?
So I think I could.
I can
go
hear you.
ahead.
Can you guys? No, can
there
you hear
you
me? Yeah, sorry about that. That is a grant that I found out as I was researching the cost of vans and what we had available to us, and that was brought up to me. So I was going to look into it more in the springtime. It is a competitive grant, so there's no guarantee.
Okay.
And I don't know, Michelle, if you know more than that, or if we've done it in the past. But since I've been here, we have not applied for anything like that.
No, and Nancy, I was just going to say, because you were frozen, that we had spoken and you had mentioned that it was a highly competitive grant. So that's it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Michelle.
The one we're good at getting every year is the formula grant from the state. So we're assuming that's going to be adjusted once the census comes out and they'll probably adjust it downward, is my guess. But you know, one thing that I think we all need to consider is, I know that Nancy had put the average in there, which was 66,000, based off of quotes from last year. I think we all know, based on the news, that there's an automobile shortage in the country. And I'm not sure there's a shortage of these types of vans. I know that the facility we went to had plenty of them to choose from, but I suspect we would need to consider adding 10% to the quote. If going to town meeting, you may want to round it to say 75,000, just on the off chance that everyone is taking advantage of the market in the automobile industry, which I know they're doing on used cars. They certainly have gone up.
Right.
So
Are these vehicles on the state bid list, Michelle?
So yes.
In other words,
yeah.
does the dealer actually have the opportunity to haggle and or price inflate based on current conditions, or is the price basically set by the state?
The price is set. We buy from 3 different state contracts.
Okay.
What I can say is, though, as far as a trade-in, would we be trading in the old vehicle? Because there's substantial savings typically that we get from that. And then in addition to this would be, did we factor into that the lettering and things like that? I know it's a nominal cost, but the lettering and the radios, it just adds an additional cost. We want to make sure we're all in. And as far as the car market right now, we're waiting up to, 8-10 months just to get a vehicle. Even those that are on the lot but have to be outfitted, the outfitters are just way behind.
Right. So it makes getting it approved this May more critical, if the wait time is that much longer than usual.
You might not see this for a year, right?
Yeah. So I can tell you that that's the cost of the basic van. So that's not adding the graphics to the van, which, we may have money in our own budget to be able to do that. I'm not sure. We've been pretty self-sustaining. And in fact, we've had money go back to the town a couple of times on our budget, due to the reduced services, obviously, through COVID. So we do have a formula grant that there might be some wiggle room on. I know we work with Glenn Pratt on getting the radios set in the van, so that might come from emergency management. I think that it came last time from there as well. So I think those were the 2 things that would really stick out, because the van would come ADA compliant to what we need. It would have the backup cameras built into it by now. So that would be the only thing.
In the interest of time, let me suggest this. What I'd like to do is just quickly poll the capital budget members to see if they have any capital related questions in terms of the core asset. And then what I'm going to suggest is that we just ask you to go back and sharpen your pencil on exactly what appropriation you think is needed to ensure that you're going to be able to transact. Okay. And there's 2 parts to that. One is, what is the vehicle actually going to cost based on the way that you want it fit out. Okay. And then the second piece of that is, what, if anything, can we expect or count on in terms of, trade-in value for the existing van. But, your point's accurate. You want an appropriation that allows you to get this done. We don't want to over appropriate, because that basically crowds out other projects, but you want a number that ensures that when you actually go out to buy this, you have the ability to buy it.
So in the past, the town manager has been in charge of dispositioning of vehicles for us. So we're not sure what that process is.
Well, you can either, there are 2 ways to do it. You can either trade this in and use that against the purchase price, or you can just buy this outright without a trade, and you can put the other vehicle out to auction. It does impact the appropriation, because if you go the second route, that goes back into the general fund and it's not an offset against your purchase. So we would need to appropriate for the full amount in that scenario.
Okay. Yeah, we did receive a $6,000 rebate from Quality Van Sales in Norton, and maybe with the shortage of used vehicles, they would be willing to take a used vehicle for some credit. So maybe Michelle, if you have some an email you can send us to, these are the questions to ask, then we can ask them directly, or if you would
Yeah,
like.
we just need you to sharpen your pencil on the number. It's not a controversial topic. We just need to know what the right number is. But on that note, I would like to poll the other members of capital budget to see if they have, questions with regards to the core asset, the need for replacement, the purpose of the vehicle, sort of the core questions around this. Why don't we go ahead and start with you, Michael? Michael, you're on mute.
Yeah, my Zoom screen just said, "Hey, dummy, you're on mute." So first, I support everything that Elder Affairs does and feel that you provided a really important service. My role, though, in capital budget is to ask difficult questions, and I've got several difficult questions for you. I've actually laid them out, so I'll just read through them. What is the demand for transportation? What is the number of people and number of trips per week? And I guess I would expand that question to, when we ever get out of pandemic conditions, what would you anticipate? How many people need wheelchair and walker support? Is there any value in the old van to defray the costs? And how much can Elder Affairs contribute to the purchase? And adjust your own budgets and perhaps give something else up in order to get this van. And one other question that just popped into my head, and that's this, and it's difficult too. Would you consider trading in one of the other vans along with this wheelchair van so that you have one standard van and one wheelchair van? Could you operate that way? So I'm not actually looking for answers tonight, but those are the questions that I have as I hear what you're offering. And those questions are only going to my role in trying to make limited funds go around for everyone that's asking for it.
Great. I wrote all those questions down, Michael. Thank you. We can address those when we get back to the group with the numbers.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
I would just like to say one thing. So currently, Elder Affairs has the use of an electric vehicle. That lease expires in December. So the thought of trading in one of the vans to offset the cost of this new van likely won't be an option, because we may not get more electric vehicles. Those were given to us through a grant process, and there's no funding yet that has been released for more electric vehicles. So in December, we may not have that extra vehicle for Elder Affairs. So I would just be cautious about that extra van, because you may need it.
Yeah, we are using that a lot for the medical appointments and putting the walker in the trunk.
So you could effectively be going from 4 to 2 if we lost that and we replaced one of the smaller vans with this larger van. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Ralph, anything?
Yeah, of course, like Mike, I guess my role is to try to ask questions which are also fairly tough, I think, on people. But I guess the first question for me is the simultaneous use of all these vehicles. In fact, how often, this is more or less along the same lines as I think Mike's, which is how frequently do you have all three vehicles out plus this electric vehicle? Is there any occasion where in fact you have all three of the vans operating and have three operators? And how frequently is that? That's number one question. Number two, which is we always used to ask, is what if you don't get this? How are you going to function? What will happen then? I think you have to ask yourself, this may or may not pass. Therefore, what will you do? And do you have contingency plans associated with not getting this? And number three is a personal opinion about much of our vehicle fleet in the town, which I think goes back to many discussions on this issue, which is we allow vehicles basically to rust out and not wear out. At 3,000 miles per year, I find it unconscionable that we don't do anything to preserve their life. We leave them outdoors. We wait till they, in this case, they drip water through their roofs and they rust out. And I would suggest to you that it would be a better investment, in fact, to find some way to begin to garage some of at least those vehicles. You've got 3 of them and perhaps 4 when you count the electric one. And I've made this appeal many times, and not just to you, it's not just to you, but in fact, I am getting tired of hearing about things that are rusting out in this town and just wearing out when they have very low mileage, which to me is not the way we do things as individuals. So we're not thinking as individuals, we're thinking as this town has enough money to cover everything. And then finally, doesn't a user of those vehicles as a passenger in those vehicles pay something in the way of actually the use of them, or is everything completely free for everyone? So those are my questions.
Okay, we can, I wrote those down as well. We can address those when we address the rest of them. You know, just in general, the simultaneous use of vehicles, it's unfortunately dependent on the type of passenger we're transporting. So there is a lot of times where there isn't simultaneous use of vehicles. But it depends on where they're going. It's not just in town. We leave town a lot, and we don't know who we're booking to a certain extent until we get that booking. So it is it's a choice that we can't accept someone's need to be transported. If we know they're in a wheelchair, for instance, and we don't have this wheelchair vehicle, then we have to defer that off. And we do utilize other services that are in the transportation business because we're part of the T. The T has what they call the ride. The ride has to be booked out a certain period of time in advance, and the patron who takes that ride, I think, pays a $15 fee. I think, Nancy, something like that.
Yeah, no, it's not that much. It's, I think, per ride, it's $5 or $6.
Okay. And then we have a fish program, which are volunteers who use their own personal vehicles to take one individual to a doctor's appointment. So those are fringe in service.
In service to humanity.
Service to humanity. Thank you. So we have utilized other services as well to help augment what we're doing. But we will certainly come back with some comprehensive answers to the questions, Ralph.
Thank you.
Francine?
Hi, yeah, I don't have any other questions other than what's already been covered by everyone else.
Okay. Well, look, lots of tough questions, but I do want to end on the same note that the questions began, which is you have a group of people here who have incredible respect for your operations and services that you perform. And we understand you do a tremendous amount in the community and have very real needs in terms of your assets. So please take these questions in that context. And we, most importantly, I think we do need a solid number, but all these other questions, I think, will help people get to the right outcome on this.
Certainly. We've had these tough questions many years in the past, and they were kind of a blessing in disguise because it really forced us to go back and look at ourselves that we really never had before. A prior director, we were so used to just submitting the form that the town manager gave us, and not really think about it. So, we got challenged pretty good, I should say, for a couple of years before we got those 2 vans. So
you did get the 2 vans, and you learned.
Yes, we did.
I think we all learned a lot in the process. So
we may have lost weight. We may have lost a little weight in the process, but that was all right. But these are good questions, and we actually have answers to many of them. But we'll put it together and be back in front of you.
Great. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. We are on to fire, and I'm aware that we're materially behind schedule. So hopefully we will do our best to at least hold the line. Assistant Chief Dockery, how are you today?
Hello, Brian. Hello, members of the Capital Budget Committee. Thank you for letting me join you this evening.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I have two requests in for capital. The first one is to replace a cardiac monitor that is on our primary transport ambulance. Last year, we did about 900 transports. Of those 900, 700 or so were ALS transports where individuals were placed on the cardiac monitor to be monitored, whether it be their heart rate, rhythm, breathing, oxygen saturation, blood pressure, and if needed, we'd have to shock individuals with the device. The device we're looking to replace, we purchased in 2009. Speaking with the rep, Stryker rep, these devices have a life of 8 to 9 years. Right now, we're on 12, going into 14 years in 2013.
Okay.
So, and also this device also transmits the EKGs that we do in the field to the hospital that allows the receiving physician and the cardiology department to see what kind of heart rhythm we have in the field and what kind of treatment the individual may need on our arrival at South Shore Hospital. The device is $39,240. And again, it's part of our replacement cycle, our capital build out for the next 15 years. So it's kind of coming up in line right now. So any questions for me on that? Oh, I can show you.
So my first question is this, I assume this is in the frontline ambulance. Is that correct?
Correct. This is the device we're replacing the frontline ambulance. Michelle, if you can give me privilege, I could just like show the device.
Yeah, and just let me ask, the spare ambulance that is not on site at the emergency response facility, does that have a unit in it also, or did we pull this unit out of that one, I assume?
No, the one that's garaged up at the water treatment plant does not have a monitor in it.
Okay, so we have one monitor, it's in the newest ambulance on site at the fire department. Okay.
We actually, Brian, we have 3 monitors. We have one in the primary ambulance, and then we have one in engine 1, which is a backup ALS non-transport ambulance. And then we also have one in engine 2, again, is a non-transport ALS ambulance. So in the event if our primary ambulance is out of town, we're receiving a mutual aid ambulance from another community, members arrive on scene and they can start ALS care right away while waiting for the incoming ambulance to arrive on scene. Let's see.
Okay, I didn't see a request on this. I mean, I saw the pamphlets on this. Maybe I missed it, Michelle, but I didn't see a request on this this is what I saw, but I didn't actually see a request on the device in the folder or on the capital planning spreadsheet. We just had the request on the PPE, on the personal protective equipment, both the request and in the spreadsheet. So we'll just need to add this.
I will add it.
Michelle, do you have Chief Sylvia's capital spreadsheet out 15 years?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the device we're looking to replace on the primary ambulance.
Okay.
Again, the one we have now is a 2009. If you're seeing on your screen, which is the V1 or version 1.
Okay.
And it's missing some of the new technology that if we replace it with version 4 with the most up-to-date technology that they offer.
And what's on the 2 engines? What versions are on the 2 engines?
On engine 1 is the V4 and on engine 2 is the V2.
Okay. And how often do the ones on the engines get used relative to this one? The one in the ambulance.
Well, the one in the ambulance, like I said, we did about 700 ALS transports. So if that's what gets used about 700 times a year.
Yeah.
The one on the engines, I don't have a number for you right now, but I can get that for you.
I guess the thought behind the question is, should we really have the V4 sitting on an engine, which I'm guessing doesn't get used anywhere near as much as the one on the ambulance?
Yeah, that is correct.
I mean, if the V1's dying, we got to replace the V1, so be it. But it seems like we should have our best equipment on the front line where it's, the maximum use.
The only thing is the V1, the 2009 has the modem in it to send the EKGs along. So it was set up that way. So now when we purchase the new one, if we do purchase the new one, then we have to set that all up with Stryker in transmitting the EKGs.
Okay, so the ones that are on the engines do not have the modem?
Correct. No, they don't.
Okay. All right. Well, that largely answers why you're not switching them between vehicles. I get
Correct. It. Okay. Any other further questions on the monitor?
Yes, I have a question. Just going back to how you've deployed these different units along your different equipment. Would it be possible to take the V4 off that engine and equip it with the modem on the primary ambulance and then get a V2 perhaps for that other engine?
They're not selling V2 anymore. They're up to V4 now for what they're selling for equipment. But we could do that, but they're not selling the V2 anymore. It's now the V4. So that would be the newest piece of equipment.
Okay.
All right. So fundamentally, this is end of life and it needs replaced, period. Is that?
Yes. Once these cardiac monitors hit 15 years, as we just saw with the AEDs that we recently popped up for special town meeting back in December, once they hit a lifespan of 15 years, the manufacturers won't supply any equipment to replace them, whether it be pads, cartridges, batteries, electrodes. Yeah, they just won't. They won't support them any longer.
Okay.
And what is it, the price on this?
The price on this is $38,923.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Ralph, any questions?
Well, just the obvious one is, why aren't we waiting for John, why don't we wait out till 15 years, which is really what we expect the life cycle to be? Why are we doing it?
The only thing is we don't want to be behind. Sorry, we don't want to be behind the 8 ball and waiting for that to happen. By the time we get this, it'll probably maybe almost close to 15 years because the supply chain just got everything backed up. Obviously, we placed the order for the AEDs once town meeting approved those, and we're still waiting on when they'll even be in to the distributor. So that's why.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is an 09, and if you get it shipped in 23, it would have 14 years on it at that point.
Yep.
All right. And how long has the V4 been out? Are they about to introduce another version and obsolesce this one as well?
No, the V4 came out in, where do I have it? Was 2019.
Okay.
So
we're early in the life cycle.
Yep.
Maybe halfway at most.
Yep. The one big thing about the V4 is that, as you can see, item number 9 has the AC/DC adapter. Would allow us that if we carry extra batteries, but if we were on scene, especially in a residence, we can plug it in. We also can plug it into the back of the ambulance too. If we had a battery issue, like, that's a nice backup feature for power.
You could actually carry this into a residence and plug it into an outlet and run it.
Yes, if we needed to, but
Yeah.
the machine uses 2 batteries, and then we also carry 2 spare batteries on it also. But in event if we had a power issue or a battery issue, we can plug it into an AC outlet.
Okay.
John, this device also allows you to put some kind of monitors on a person's chest or other places for the purposes of doing an electrocardiogram. Is that correct? Or watching the heart?
Yes,
That's
that
what-
is correct. Yep, we
Okay.
can defibrillate VFib, BTAC, rhythms right away.
And transmit those to the hospital.
Correct.
Okay. And is that what's typically done, or is that unusual to use that kind of capability?
Oh, no, we transmit a bunch of EKGs. If you haven't, you could be sitting talking to me, but I don't like your rhythm. It's kind of an interesting rhythm. We'll transmit that to the hospital to let them know, hey, we have a rhythm with kind of question on it. And again, it goes to the attending physician in the ER, and it goes to the cardiology department.
Okay,
So-
thanks.
Francine, any questions?
I had just one quick question. I think the price, John, that you quoted, the 38,920 for the V4, does that include, will that be fitted with a modem then? Because you'll need this one to have the modem.
Yep,
that
no,
right?
well, we have the modem.
Oh,
No,
okay,
so
all right.
We have the modem.
Oh,
No
okay.
additional cost for the modem.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions on this, why don't we move on to the protective equipment?
Okay, so under the protective equipment, we have requests for $17,000. And that is because we're gonna have 2 members that are gonna be retiring in the spring. And so we're gonna be looking to hire 2 additional members, and they probably won't come on board until after July 1st. And so we need to outfit them. We need to outfit them with 2 sets of protective firefighting gear, which is coats, pants, helmet, hoods, gloves. We also need to get them an EMS jacket, flashlight, extrication gloves. So
So John, is this 1 set for each person, or is this 2 sets for each person?
2 sets for each person.
Okay,
And so that meets the standard.
so they're fully equipped.
Yeah, they're fully equipped. So if they use their gear, they can wash it and still have another gear to use when that gear is being washed. And again, the gear has a lifespan of 10 years.
Right.
So that's why it's kind of gone the capital route because of the cost, and we can use it for 10 years. So,
Okay.
any questions for that?
Well, I know we just bought a whole new fleet of this stuff, I don't know, a year or 2 ago. I think it was the 2nd set. Everybody had 1 set, and I think we're
Correct.
getting up on age, and we bought a 2nd set for everybody on the force. So when people retire, is some of that stuff still almost new. Can that be reused / reissued? Does that just go in a spare pile in case somebody's stuff gets destroyed and you need a quick replacement? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that goes more into the spare pile because
Okay.
we all have our different physiques. Okay.
Sure.
Some are
Yep.
taller, some are shorter,
Yep.
some with arms, legs, waist, and so forth. Yeah,
You
because
can't have
right
your
now,
pants fall down in the middle of a fire. So
yeah. But the other thing too, the big issue right now is gear in a sense. When I first came on, it took about 8 weeks to get gear. Now it's taking about 6 months to get gear. So
okay.
that's the problem, is the wait period. So yeah, we'll have some gear in the backup in case someone's pants rip. Hopefully
Right.
they can find a pair so we can send the pair out to be fixed while their pants are being repaired.
Okay. So it's there just to get people through a pinch.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yep.
I don't have any further questions on the PPE. Does anyone else? Ralph, any questions?
John, I can't imagine you could buy this until you actually have seen the people and know their physiques. This looks to me as though something you're not going to be able to buy. Certainly in the short term, you can't even order it because you don't know exactly what the people will look like who you're going to
Right.
buy it for, right?
Right. So we'll call for a list from civil service, start the hiring process. And then once we have those candidates on board, we have the rep come down and they get measured properly for their gear. So again, it's a process. We haven't started the hiring process. We're waiting for the new list from civil service to come out, which should be in March sometime. And then from there, hopefully we'll have them onboarded, ready to go by the end of April. And, we'll have the rep come down and measure them. But again, we won't see that for 6 months. That gear won't be until 6 months.
So it would definitely be in fiscal 23. It would probably be, whatever, September, October, November.
Correct.
Before this showed up. But
Yes.
it's absolutely fiscal 23. Okay.
Yes.
So what do the new firefighters use? If you've got a 6-month delay?
Yep. So we use a rental gear that will come and that they can wear. We'll also maybe look at the pile of the gear that's not being used right now because the individuals are retired, and see if they can fit into it and use that. But again, these firefighters, once they come on board, they're not considered line firefighters until they graduate the academy. So even though they're in-house, they're going to calls, they're riding the ambulance and so forth. They're working on the fire ground. We have to have them properly outfitted, but they're not able to go into any structure that's on fire until they've graduated the fire academy.
And when does that happen?
So that's the other thing too, is once we have them on board, then we forward their information and request an academy class for them to attend. And then we have to wait back from the academy to find out when we can get them in a class.
Okay.
Yeah. The other question from me, John, is are all of these people that you're going to get off the civil service list going to be ALS qualified?
Yes, we're going to request for paramedics.
Okay.
Yep.
Francine, any questions?
No, I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Okay. All right, John, I think we're all set on this request.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you, Brian, Ralph, Mike, and
Thank you for your
Francine,
time.
and Michelle, and Mike. Have a good night. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, John.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Yeah.
Move on to police. Do we have Chief Quigley? Bill, you're on mute.
I just have to just update the name here. Okay, we're all squared away now. And Mike Lopes is here as well. Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
I don't know if you have the information to put up or not, but so here we are. It's fiscal 23 meetings already. This year is a pretty standard year. We're just going with the cruiser replacement program, and the number that you see on the request, 119,480, is for 2 cars, mobile data computers, and radios.
Okay.
So it's all inclusive as well as the graphics.
Got it.
And the upfitting. That number may change because we're between bids. The state bid list has not come out yet for 23 and 24.
Okay.
So I'm sort of working with, numbers that may or may not be good, but I think they're pretty accurate. We added 3% from last year, and these are for hybrid vehicles. We've gone completely hybrid we're buying hybrids now, and they seem to be working out okay. We haven't had a couple hiccups, but all in all, we're definitely saving money in gas.
Okay, so you're pleased with the hybrids. I mean, I know we put you and Chief Sylvia into hybrids a year or two ago. Do we have hybrids on the front line at this point?
We do. So we have two marked hybrids on the front line.
So we did those last year?
Yeah, we got authorization to purchase July 1st.
Okay.
And they came online sometime around November. We got permission to right after town meeting, literally I was leaving the music circus and I ordered them with no promise that we could, no promise to actually pick them up on July 1st, but the guy knows we've been here since 1770 and we're good for it. So I like to get ahead of that so we're not waiting the 6, 8, 9 months that it is taking everyone else.
Well, little known fact, Bill, that's why we religiously maintain roughly $1 million balance in the capital stabilization fund so that there is no lag between the time that town meeting approves these requests and the time when you can actually place the orders. So hopefully you'll be fortunate with timing again this year. But back to the hybrids, you guys are at this point we've got somewhere between we've got 4 of them, right? At least 3 in your department plus 1 over in fire, and you guys are happy with how they're performing.
Yeah, they seem to be working well. And Hingham came over last year and they looked at mine, and we had a long conversation, the Hingham chief and I, and he went completely hybrid this year. So
okay.
I think he got 10 hybrid cars. They're extremely happy. As a matter of fact, I'll share with you, they just did a press release on going hybrid and the savings in gas mileage that they're seeing. And just for a point of reference, the gasoline cars get about anywhere between 10 to 12 miles per gallon. The hybrids, the frontline patrol ones are getting about 18, 19. In mine, I'm doing 24, 25 miles per gallon. So
okay,
it's substantial.
Good. So you've got sizable fleet experience at this point with these. And I guess they're a bit more expensive, right? They're what, 5 or 10 grand more than the base vehicles that we were working with before?
The last bid, they were about $4,000 more each. So it's not terribly expensive.
No, it's not bad. Okay.
But poor Wayne, we bring him to him and he's
yeah.
It's not
and
exactly
they still come with the 5-year 100,000-mile warranty?
They do, same warranty. Okay. So we're trying to maximize that across the fleet. And we've actually had some issues that we've utilized that warranty. Recently we broken axle.
Okay. 2
cars broken axles, some type of factory issue, but we lost a car for 11 weeks throughout the fall. So it's nice to have a little bit of a cushion where we have an extra spare car.
Right.
So it's worked out well, but we're just experiencing the same delays everybody else is with supply chain issues.
Okay. And give me, if you would kindly give us a quick update, just sort of on the rotation of the vehicles, just so that we, try and target that 100,000-mile number right around the end of year 5 to max out the warranty. Have you been able to move the vehicles through the different roles to sort of balance the intense mileage that goes on from your frontline cruisers versus the lesser mileage that you put on in some of the other roles?
Yeah, so we hand them back. They end up in administrative roles.
Mm-hmm.
They're still frontline cars, because they're still responding to emergencies.
Right. The
way we have things, but we are maximizing that 100,000 mile. We're hitting it for the most part. Once some a little over, some a little under, depending on what have. It's hard to it's hard to gauge, but it is working out. And we replaced the transmission on a car that had 97,000 miles. So
for free.
Yeah, exactly. They don't like that.
Well, that's a plan that seems to be working. Super.
And we're coming up next year. We'll probably have to make an adjustment because it's going to be one of those years where, we will probably, it'll be one of the, we talked about a 3-car year. I'm just sort of seeing how things shake out with the hybrids and where we are with unmarked. So next year it could change. I'm not sure though.
Okay. And we're disposing of, we're being disciplined about disposing the cars that we're replacing. So we're not growing the fleet here.
Yeah. So Michelle has auctioned a couple for us.
Okay.
Canine vehicle and I think another marked car. We have a couple right now that rolled off. Well, we rolled a couple off. We ended up using it because we had that car out for 10 weeks. Then we lost another one. We're
Okay.
actually down one now. So we've actually been using them, but one is ready to be put out to offer for other departments, whether it's emergency management or whomever.
Okay.
It's got about, I want to say almost 90,000 miles. But it's got some issues. It should be, we've had issues with this one from the beginning. But it's okay for, a lesser role, I think.
Okay. Is this one of the Fords or is this one of the other older vehicles?
We have one Ford and we have a 2011 or 2012 Dodge Charger that's going to roll
Right.
off.
But which one's the one that has had trouble from the beginning? Is it one of the Fords?
One of the Fords, yeah.
It is one of the Fords. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the earlier Explorers.
Like a 15-ish.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Well, it seems like this program's largely working in terms of keeping the maintenance costs down by maxing out these warranties. I don't think I have any other questions on the vehicles, but I'd love to just quickly go through the other committee members to make sure that if they do, that we have the opportunity to ask. So perhaps Michael, do you have any questions? You just went on mute, Michael.
There you go.
There you go.
We're good? Okay. What is the total cost of ownership? And that would include any costs for uncovered maintenance, costs for installing chargers, axle problem. Should we stay with this manufacturer? Is it Ford? Is this really a chronic problem that's turning up all over the place? And then also, how much mileage do you get on a charge when it's fully charged? And are you getting any reduction in mileage in the cold weather? So those are some of the questions I've got.
So these are actually hybrids. So they're not electric vehicles. So we're not charging them per se. I think they charge themselves is the way that it works. So as an example, I'll be driving down North Main Street at 30 miles an hour, and you'll see the tachometer just go to 0, and you just glide along. But if you step on the gas, the tachometer comes back up. So
I see.
there's no charging yet.
These are not plug-in hybrids.
No.
Okay. And any difference with cold weather, and then the axle problem? Do you stay with Ford?
It's sort of different driving them because it's sort of, I guess I'm not a pilot, but it's like fly by wire. There's a gas pedal, but it's really not, there's no cable that goes under the hood that I know of. So you have to sort of learn to drive them. They'll sort of take off on you. It's definitely a different feel, and it takes some getting used to in the snow. So there's a snow mode that's sort of, when you put it in snow mode, a slippery road mode, it acts less as a hybrid. So you're not using the batteries as much. But it is a little bit different, but it doesn't, there's been no problems with them so far.
Okay. And then with the axles?
So the axles, that was on regular gasoline cars.
Oh, not on these hybrids.
No, it was on a newer gas car.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Yeah. And it was pulling, and they noticed some type of crack in the axle. So
Got it.
they're replacing it. But
Right.
again, it was 11
This new
weeks.
generation of hybrid is really fine. Has there been any uncovered maintenance costs, not under warranty?
No, the only anomaly is, when we do oil changes, we've been going to Jiffy Lube now, because I was the first one to show up at Jiffy Lube in Norwell with one of these things, and it literally, they took out, and I don't even think they had these anymore, but the equivalent of a Chilton's manual, and they couldn't figure out how to get to the oil pan. And they have to drop like a skid plate and a battery protector. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So it literally took me, Jiffy Lube was not a Jiffy that day.
Right.
It takes about 45 minutes on a good day.
Right.
So that's the only thing I'm really noticing. And the gasoline ones, you're literally done in 10 minutes.
Right. Great, thank you. I see we have another member of the force here. Is that Lieutenant Lopes or Lopez?
It's Lopes, or Michael's my first name. I'm a lieutenant.
Yeah. Do you have any comments or anything you want to add?
No,
No,
Mike's also a driving instructor as well. He's an emergency vehicle operator instructor.
Yeah, I'm driving one of the older cars. I run the CID, the Criminal Investigations Division. So we have a few of the older vehicles. So I'm driving a Ford. One of my detectives is driving a Durango. They're, I think, 2015, 2016. But they've been holding up good. They have a lot of miles. But I agree with the chief. I think these hybrids have been working out fairly well. The officers are happy with them. We're getting some good gas mileage, and they seem to be holding up.
Good. Hey, thank you. Appreciate you joining us tonight.
No problem.
Bill, the thing I would request is we ought to really relook at the waterfall chart one more time. And we're sort of losing track of what we had agreed to in the beginning. If you have time to sort of go through that and how do they descend down through the additional uses, what goes wrong. And there's a much better history. I think it'd be helpful for everybody, because a lot of people have, we did our waterfall chart, 10 years ago or something.
I know, time flies.
It was a long time ago. So it really would be helpful to sort of relook at that again, particularly with the hybrids coming in and, maintenance issues. How is it changing, or is it changing for the positive? Are we getting sort of better usage, fewer, problems with the cars, irrespective of whether there's an occasional, cracked axle. But the point is, just to relook at this whole thing, and with something in mind that long term, can we push some of these warranties out if in fact these cars have longer life simply because they're hybrids, or are we all still stuck with the 5 years and 100,000 miles? Is that going to be it no matter what, or are we going to get some benefit out of all of this? Because we're not calculating anymore in a hybrid the same amount of usage based on just standby time. If you remember, what we would calculate was there was a value associated with just idling, and we called that, we had a mileage adder because of it. And yet the hybrids should not have that same adder. May have some, I wouldn't doubt we have some, but there's some additional factors coming into this now that say we ought to pay attention and see what we can do to actually see if there's anything we can do to actually continue to extend the life of these vehicles. But I think critical will be whether or not we can extend the life associated with the actual 100,000 mile warranties. I think that's going to be critical. So that's the kind of thing I'd push for long term. So
yeah, no, absolutely. It deserves a fresh look. The best plans, you can lay the best plans, but there's always, we always get a curveball. They come out, there's hybrids that actually work now, or we had an engine seize up, a couple of years ago on the animal control truck, so we had to swap things around. So sometimes things don't go as planned, but we're trying to stick with the program that was outlined, but it's definitely worth a fresh look.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so 2 cars. And then what else do we have from police?
A station radio, a base station radio.
Yeah.
That's 13960. It's a Motorola base station radio. We have not replaced that in coming up on 20 years. We're way past.
Okay, so this goes in the station. It does not go in the cars.
Yeah, this is a base station radio, so headquarters can contact other places, and everybody's gone digital now. So we have some challenges with an analog radio in the station. And the hope was always that the SHREC, the Regional Dispatch Center, would cover that with one of their grants, but it just has never come to fruition. Something always knocks us out of contention. So we've tried hoping for 5 years, but now, it's come down to, we actually have to have a radio.
So that's, is that 13,960 for one or for a pair?
No, that's a base station, and there's external speakers that go throughout, we'll pipe the radio throughout the station, as well as the antenna. We have to put an antenna on the roof. The antenna on the roof is 20 years old as well.
Okay, so it's a full installation. The radio might be half of that, and then the rest of it is the installation and the peripherals.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, we chased every grant we could, and it hasn't worked with the regional dispatch center. We've gotten other things replaced, computers and things like that, but we haven't been able to get a radio out of them.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Anyone else on the committee? Ralph, any questions? You're on mute.
I know that. It takes me, unfortunately, I have a pop-up at the bottom of my screen that just knocks out my ability to knock the mute in or out. I know what to do. But anyway, no, I'm all set with that. I know you need the base station radio. Good question.
Okay. Michael, any questions?
Just want to reconfirm that the 13,960 covers the antenna and speakers.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Francine?
No question.
Okay.
No.
All right. And then, Nick is up next, but it probably makes sense to do the lockers jointly.
That's why I brought up Mike Lopes worked on that project with Nick. So yeah.
Perfect. And maybe, we'll transition into the rest of Nick's facility stuff at that point. But let me just suggest there's one other item that's, that appeared in one of the spreadsheets as police, and that was for a facilities review. I spoke to Chief Quigley earlier today. I think before we sort of discuss this at a committee level, we really need to do a liaison meeting first to understand and vet that request, just so that the discussion goes in the right direction, wherever that direction is going. So, that's out there. I would just, let the other capital budget members know. You may have seen that in the spreadsheet that was circulated to the selectmen. I forwarded that, I think last week. But right now, there's not a request in front of us right now for that facilities review. And we'll get more information on that shortly. So with that as a transition, why don't we touch on the lockers, and then we can move into next stuff.
Yeah, so working with Lieutenant Lopes and a great guy from a great company that specializes in police lockers and evidence lockers and such. I'll let Lieutenant Lopes kind of talk about more the needs and deficiencies that they have. Okay. And then what I can do is explain what we need to do to make it happen. And I'll get into the weeds with you.
Okay. As everybody knows, the facilities, the station, was built back in '62. So it's a challenge, here in 2022 to do a lot of things, right. Because it's such an old building. But the locker room in particular is a little bit of an issue. It was updated in 1990. We added a female locker room around that time, and it basically only accommodates 2 females. Right now, we have 33 employees, sworn and civilian, 4 of them being female. So, we only have a couple of lockers in there for 4 females. The area is small. We have a lot of the lockers don't have security locks on them. Keys are missing. We've had to install hasps on the lockers to keep some of the weapons that we store in there secure. There's no ventilation to dry vests and boots. Back in 1962, there weren't a lot of guys wearing ballistic vests. Now it's everybody wears one now, and you wear them on a daily basis. And you have to hang them up, change their carriers, and you need a ventilated place for them to dry. the current lockers that we have they're high school lockers. They're not really made to store a lot of the equipment we have, the guns, the tasers, chemical sprays, helmets, vests, gas masks, tactical gear. We have some offices that are assigned to regional units that have more equipment than other offices, and a lot of it is tactical gear, and they're large. Like I said, helmets. We have regular vests, but these officers, might carry vests with steel-plated heavy armor ballistic vests that we use for SWAT and active shooter type situations. So, some offices have migrated into 1, 2, 3 lockers because they have so much equipment. And then we have other offices that might not even have a locker. So, so those are some of the issues we have. So these lockers that we did look at kind of solve the problem of ventilation for the vets, being the right size to store some of this equipment I just spoke about. And also, more important than anything, securing a lot of the equipment and the weapons that we do carry and we need to store when the officers aren't working. So that's kind of where we stand with that. We currently have 20 lockers in the male locker room, and I believe we have 3 in the female locker room. So 33 persons working for the department, and we have 23 lockers.
Okay. Okay. So do we actually have space in the facility to accommodate a much expanded locker configuration?
We do. We had the rep come in. We did some measurements. We looked at several different types of lockers, and with help from him, Nick, we've come to a conclusion that we can accommodate a certain locker and still have as many as we do right now, and maybe even put a few newer ones in there. It's all about space. We don't have a lot of space to play with, so we're trying to do the most we can with the space that we have.
And the space constraint that we do have, is that causing a compromise in the lockers that you're selecting versus what you would select if you were, say, going into a new facility? Asked differently, are the constraints forcing us to buy lockers that ultimately we're going to want to replace, if we replace the whole facility a few years out?
I believe the lockers that we selected are lockers that we would be able to use if we were ever to get a new facility, and they would accommodate us in a new larger facility as well. We're not skimping on the size of the locker or the ability of the locker just because of the size of our current station.
Okay.
And I will add to that the lockers are totally modular, so they remove very easily. They're not a permanent installation. So if they ever needed to move to a new facility, he assured us it's extremely easy to do so.
Okay. And in terms of the female locker room, it sounded like there was an extraordinary space constraint there. Are we? Do gentlemen have a plan to perhaps address that?
I think we have 3 of them in there now, and based on some measurements, I want to say we might be able to squeeze 2 more. It kind of just depends. A little configuration would need to be done.
Okay.
And getting rid of like a closet in that space, which is mostly used for janitorial supplies right now.
Okay.
But yeah, so we could potentially get 1 or 2 more in that space.
Okay.
And some of these new lockers are a little bit taller, so we're gaining a little bit of area that way.
Okay.
It's really, we're definitely squeezed, but we have to start addressing some of these issues.
But we're doing it, but you're squeezed in a way where we can make a good long-term decision on these lockers. Okay.
Yeah, we kept an eye on that. That was, the goal was to be able to take these with us if we ever were to.
If and when it's appropriate.
So I'll talk about some of the features that these have that we don't have currently that adds to the cost of the overall project. So each of these lockers would be equipped with a power outlet inside. which is all included with the locker pricing. So all we would have to do is get power to the whip that's included,
Okay.
which is nice. And I don't believe you guys have power to them now. So that's a totally new thing to charge all the equipment, which is great.
So
then-
what do we, it's, if I can ask, what would we be charging inside the lockers? Would it be radios, tasers? I'm just thinking out loud, but what would actually require charging capability?
Yeah, those,
Radios and, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
no, it's okay. Yeah, radios, flashlights, wouldn't accommodate charging. Tasers, they don't work that way, but it would definitely be for radios and flashlights,
Okay.
things like that.
Thank you.
The other added feature is, as you touched on, ventilation. It's not just that the lockers need to be ventilated, but it's a whole exhaust system that gets ducted in, similar to an HVAC unit with an exhaust fan on the roof. So
Okay.
you duct into the top of the lockers. The bottom of the locker has little dampers that you can control. So it pulls in air from the foot of the locker, pumps it up through, dries the equipment, and exhausts it all exterior. So
Okay.
that's some of the added costs just to do the ducting. Luckily, it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing crazy. We have a great attic space above that. So those are the two things, electric and the exhaust ducting, that are additional to the purchase of the lockers.
So it sounds like the space and the exhaust / ventilation are really the key drivers here, and the security. I guess we're checking multiple boxes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
And in the cost you're seeing on the request, this also includes the an upgraded evidence locker as well.
Okay.
If you want to touch on that too.
Yeah, we have just explained, obviously evidence collection in law enforcement is, it's something that happens all the time. And it's one of those things that we have a strict guideline as to how we collect evidence, document it, and store it. So we have a system in the station where an officer collects some evidence. He does what we call an evidence custody document, and he puts it into storage, pre-evidence storage. The evidence officers will probably come in, their next tour of duty, they will catalog that evidence and they'll put it in permanent storage. So the pre-evidence room is a bay of the garage at the police station. I don't know if you've ever seen the garage, but it used to be 3 bays. Now it's 2 bays. 1 bay was taken away and now it is used for pre-evidence and the evidence room. So when we collect drugs, weapons, any kind of evidence, we have to store it in pre-evidence before it gets cataloged by the evidence officers. And we're looking for a locker, a storage locker that can better accommodate that than what we have now. Right now, we're using a file cabinet with drawers. If the evidence fits in there, and then for drug evidence, we have a special container for that. But these lockers would assist us in securing that pre-evidence before the evidence officers come in.
Okay.
Just as a point of reference, and I'm not sure the answer on this. I know it's a lot, but Mike, how many guns do we have in evidence?
Right now, we have approximately 160 firearms in our evidence. We've done a couple of search warrants over the last 5-6 years, and we've made some arrests. And unfortunately, even though the cases have gone to court and a decision has come down by a judge and the case is over, we can't just get rid of those weapons. We have to get them. We have to have a letter from a judge to release those weapons. And a lot of them we've had for years on end, and we need to store them, and we need to store them securely. So, like I said, I think we have approximately 160 weapons right now.
These are all taken in the town of Cohasset.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's a major, we just don't have at one point, I was walking around, we were finding, guns behind doors, just in the station. People were storing them in their, trying to store them in their lockers and trying to maintain evidence. And, we obviously can't have that. So I had to take out, bay 3 of the garage, and we cinder blocked it up. but
Yeah.
even that's not working now. It's just, policing has evolved.
Wow. Okay. Members of the committee, further questions? Francine, we'll start with you this time. No? Michael? Michael Dick?
We never actually set up a number. I looked on the spreadsheet. It looks like it's 85,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what does 85,000 buy?
So the lockers themselves are give or take like the 65 of that number, and then between the electrical and the ductwork with the exhaust fan, what would be the rest?
And the 65,000 buys how many lockers or how much space, how much volume?
So it would be a full 1-to-1 replacement. So there's 20 in the men's locker, 3 currently in the female, but if we can fit the 2, that's included.
Right, plus the evidence locker.
Yeah, that's included in there too.
Okay. And do you have an idea of how much space that is?
The evidence locker?
Is it the whole thing?
I'd have to look at it. It might have the square footage on the brochure he gave us, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Sure. It's definitely not a showstopper question. I'm just curious what the volume, what the space you'll get.
I can get the answer to you actually, because he's finalizing like the blueprints, so it'll show the layout. So I'll be able to kind of get a rough square footage of stuff based on everything.
Ralph, any questions?
We're just trying to think about, what I think would be helpful for a lot of us. And this goes not only to the lockers, it also goes to the potential question, the other question of the $150,000 for consultant. It would be helpful, I think, if you're willing to do it, to do a walkthrough, maybe together with Bob Sylvia. Let's just take a look at the situation, everything that you think you see, this being one thing. I've heard lots of other things about, inadequate facilities. If you have to have 2 prisoners, 1 male, 1 female, or 1 juvenile, it would be nice to have something of a walkthrough and really an understanding of what are the needs, what's happening. And of course, I understand how the lockers fit. I don't disagree with it. I just think that it would be helpful to understand everything in a context of, where are we with respect to both the police and fire facilities. I don't know if you want to do that, but I think it will be very helpful to a lot of us. I know I've done that before with you, but I don't know. I don't know everything for sure. Whether Michael, you want to do it, or Bill, you want to do it, or somebody wants to do it, be helpful, I think.
So Ralph, you just you and I are the liaisons to public safety. And this is exactly the conversation I had with Chief Quigley earlier today, which is before we even talk about, spending money on consultants, it's really important for the committee, starting with the liaisons, but ultimately the committee, to hear from the 2 division heads, exactly what the needs are. We don't need to pay an outside person to come in and summarize, interviews with our 2 chiefs when we can have that conversation directly to at least start with an understanding of what the facility needs are. And then we can make decisions appropriately from there. So I've made that suggestion to Chief Quigley. Chief Sylvia's out of town until next week, but I think as soon as he's back, we should do exactly the conversation that you've suggested. And then once we have that as liaisons, we can organize it and then ultimately bring it in front of the entire committee.
Yeah, and that way also it means the lockers fit into a larger picture, which is what I'm trying to get at here. So it all feels as though we're doing this wisely and with the future in mind. That's all, just to make sure.
And one of the I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in a word for our colleagues over on advisory committee. They, I think, would like to be part of that kind of.
It makes sense.
Mike Barclays is on with us from advisory. He's our liaison.
And liaison,
you should-
end of liaison to public safety too. So this would be
Perfect.
a 2-for-1 being involved with that. That'd be great.
Yeah, you should join us for that meeting because, the facility, it's not an inanimate object. It's ultimately driven by and in turn drives our operational decisions and our budget and our operational budget. So they're intimately linked. So please do. We'll work with you to make sure that this works for all 5 of us to be in that meeting.
That'd be
I
terrific.
do have, and there are the MAPC study and, an internal one we did in, I think, 2012 that we can say, I think Brian has them. I sent them this afternoon, but it's the good, the bad, and the ugly about the buildings for the.
It all exists. It's
Yeah.
all 3 boxes. Okay. Any further questions on the lockers or? Great. Well, I guess I'd like to thank Chief Quigley and Lieutenant Lopes for joining us this evening. I think we've got a good introduction to what the requests are, and I guess we'll just thank you and move on with Nick's broader facilities requests.
Thanks so much. I can't believe
Have a
it's
good
gonna be-
evening, gentlemen. Thanks
Take
for
care.
what you do.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, Nick,
Up next,
just
continuing with
behind
the,
schedule.
continuing with the police station theme. So first on my list is police station roof. It's a extremely quickly deteriorating roof in town. It kind of met the top of our list when we did our roof assessment back in early 2020. And it reared its head a little bit this year. The shingles are failing pretty decently. So we've had a few leaks pop up. I had our roofing contractor out to repair and also take kind of an overall, like another health check. And what I'm proposing is so the shingles need to be replaced. That's an easy one. But there's also, that roof doesn't come to a traditional peak. There's a flat rubber roof on top of that roof. When you look on Google Earth, you can see it. So that's developing leaks too because it's reaching an end of life. This company specializes in a roofing restoration. So it's a fluid applied fiberglass reinforced process that is actually much thicker than a rubber roof when it's put on.
Okay.
It can only be used in certain circumstances where the insulation underneath has not been deemed, compromised. So this roof is at a perfect spot that the insulation is not yet compromised, so we can do this coating system, and the cost is unbelievably cheaper, and it carries the exact same 20-year warranty that the rubber membrane does. So we're not losing out on anything in that aspect. So just for reference, the coating system runs anywhere from $17 to $20 a square foot, whereas a full rubber membrane replacement is $55 to $65 a square foot. So significant savings, same exact warranty. The system is seamless, so there are no seams like a traditional rubber roof, so a lot less fail points. And if there is any significant damage due to anything, you can apply this in small sections. You can just do a 5x5 area.
Okay.
And you're done. You don't have to cut stuff out and redo it. So that's basically the request. There's a very small awning rubber roof that would need to be replaced because that's 100% compromised. It's gone. But it's a very 6x6 kind of area. So that's just built into that. And the shingles would be a traditional tear off, probably replace it with architecturals. It'll last a little longer than those old 3 tabs.
So this is just the police side of the building. It's not the main garage or the fire side, where I know we replaced a membrane roof over there not that long ago.
Yeah, we actually did the membrane and I think the half of the shingle, the asphalt roof over there. And the garage bays roof is a lot newer and it's in very good
Okay.
condition.
Okay, so this is just the police side. And what's the number?
95,000. And that includes all engineering costs and another moisture survey. So when we did the original roof assessment, a large portion of that was a moisture survey to find out where the wet insulation was, because that tells you where the leaks are. In order to do this coating system, you must do that to make sure there's no wet insulation underneath. So we'll redo that, make sure all our ducks in a row on it, and then it can be put on. And part of 2 birds with 1 stone on this, if we do the lockers and this, that roof penetration for the exhaust system won't be an added cost at this point, because they're already tearing the roof off and all they have to do is install a curb for us. And whenever we get the exhaust fan mounted in, you can just take the cap off and go. So
Okay. It is, Nick, I'm just remembering the fire side roof replacement was a fraction of this cost. Is this side, much larger or architecturally more complicated? I mean, we're coming up at a much bigger number than what I think we spent on fire.
yeah, this is it's much larger square footage wise. The rubber portion is definitely bigger alone, and the shingles are 5 to 6 times probably the square footage of the backside where we did. It was a very small section of asphalt shingle done on the fire station.
On the fire station.
Yeah.
Okay. I also remember we had a pleasant surprise on the fire roof. I think we had budgeted 50 and it came in at like 25 or something like that. It was one of the few times that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Ralph, any questions?
Well, Nick, the only question I would have is the flashing also going to be replaced? Because unless you're rolling rubber roofs up along the vertical sections, you really have a whole flashing. Usually flashing is what gives way on rubber roofs one way or the other, or scuppers give way. Those are the real problems with rubber roofs.
Yep.
And generally with roofs, either that or it's the gutters that you get water running in behind gutters. I mean, is somebody going to look at all of these issues associated with these roofs? Is this a comprehensive job?
Yeah, this would be comprehensive, where they go through, during the shingle replacement, they would be tying in the flashing like it needs to be, fix any deficiencies before that membrane is put on. The other thing to note is the rubber roof doesn't meet this roof like you would traditionally see, say, on a school. It just flows directly off and onto the shingles. There's no scuppers or anything. So it's a little different. I know exactly what you're talking about, but this one is a little different. It's not as vulnerable, I'd say, to the flashing coming up, but that will be all included in the envelope.
Okay, thanks.
Michael?
Any concern for wind damage? And, is it an eastern exposure? Or north?
I'm just trying to picture.
I'm really, that's just going to the type of shingle that you might be using.
Yeah. A section of it is probably east facing. I would say honestly though, a lot of it's kind of protected. The front of the building, I would think is the bigger concern. The rear kind of has the whole fire side to protect it a little bit. But any shingle that we spec will be the highest rated we can get. So
Okay. Good, thanks. That's really the only question I had.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that. The northeast fetch basically comes at the fire side, and the higher roof on that kind of shelters the police roof somewhat in that area.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Francine, any questions?
I had just one clarification, Nick. If you go forward with the coating system, does the roof need to be retested, the moisture test, just to confirm that there's been no issues, that it would still work, the coating system? Or you've already gone through that and you know that it absolutely qualifies? Because I'm wondering if it doesn't.
We already went through it in early 2020. We haven't had any significant leaking up there since, so that would tell us it's okay. But before they do that membrane or the reinforcement system, they will do that again before they do that, to guarantee that there's no damaged insulation.
And if the result is different this time, if they do see that it's been compromised, then will we have no other choice but to go to the rubber roof?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
When we get to the library one, it actually explains a little bit. Usually the leaks are borderline pinhole, so that it won't saturate the insulation more than, let's just say 5 or 6 feet around. So they will cut that out, replace it, throw a rubber membrane just on that section, and then do the whole liquid. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had, Brian. Thank you.
All right. On to the next item.
Next I have the high school main electrical room, water intrusion issue. Just a caveat that this was based on installing a sump pump French drain kind of system to try mitigating this. But I had a conversation with Brian recently, and he brought to my attention a project that was done at the police station, I want to say in 2012, give or take, where they did some water sealing. And we are going to look into that as well, which should be significantly cheaper. But I just have not gotten that back yet. So the original plan was kind of more traditional, but this and Brian can probably talk a bit more because I wasn't here when they did it, but just seeing the police station basement and the lack of water now and what was described to me, it seems to work very well. So
yeah, we've used it. So at the police station, there was perennial stream. Someone actually chiseled through the concrete so it would be channeled to the sump pump. And we injected, it was coming up through the foundation because of the ledge. And it's a similar situation, it seems, over at the high school where it's coming up through the foundation joint between the vertical wall and the foundation and any other cracks that are in there. Anyway, it's a 2-part hydrophilic grout that when it gets injected, the 2 parts meet and it expands to, I think it's like 8 times its volume, and it seals up any kind of water intrusion. I've used it on dams out in Wachusett Reservoir and out at the Quabbin. It's a pretty it's a proven technology to stop water intrusion with a high head. So we're going to try that. We'll get quotes. We'll look at the traditional, French drain and sump pump room or sump pump, but we'll see what the cost is. The problem with cutting in a new French drain and sump pump, sometimes you're inviting more water intrusion by making more penetrations in the concrete. So I think the main thing is we need to mitigate the water, and we'll come back with a solution after we get, some cost from the grouters.
Brian, how do you actually insert or inject the grout? Do you just sort of drill holes in the area and go to the backside of the wall and squeeze it in there, or how do you actually create a space for the grout to expand into and block the infiltration?
It's so if the crack is here in the middle, they'll go above it and below it, kind of at a 45, and try to intercept the crack, 8 inches, or say if the wall's 8 inches, they'll try to do it halfway.
Okay.
And they'll inject the grout in those 2 ports. They'll put in little injection ports, and then you'll see the water just stop as it works. It's starts expanding.
So the ports go all the way through the wall. Is that?
So well, you'd have to see the cracks or see where the water's coming up, and then you try to intercept it. You don't drill right at the crack. You kind of drill at an angle.
Okay.
Tangentially and intercept it. It's been used at our dam in town, the Aaron River Dam too, on the face of the spillway.
Okay. Intriguing. All right. So one way or another, we need a solution there, and it'll either be a French drain or this grout.
Yeah, we've done some extensive research as to why we were getting water in this area. From my asking around, everyone just seems to say, well, we've always gotten water. It comes in the garage door. But this year it was exponentially worse for some reason. It was during that time that we got a lot of rain before the winter, and the ground was clearly so saturated it had nowhere else to go, and it was very clearly not coming in the garage door. So we started digging around, moving stuff that was there were a lot of items stored in that garage, blocking stuff. So once we moved it, we could literally see water bubbling up through cracks in the slab and against the foundation, like 3 inches. It was being like hydraulically pushed up. And
wow.
The biggest concern obviously is, having 2 inches or more of standing water literally under our main switchgear for the high school. Big time safety issue.
Right. And which school is this? This is the high school?
High school, yeah.
Okay.
Arguably high school and middle school, because if that goes down, the entire school is toast. So
right.
Yep.
I have a question. And it's purely personal, because the 2 homes I've owned here in Cohasset, one is very close to the high school, and we would have with regularity on heavy rainy springs, water coming up, literally up. And, one of my old neighbors who's now long gone, mentioned something about clay strata conducting groundwater into our basement. We're basically on the downslope of Clay Spring Road. And when I think of the high school being upslope, I just wonder, are you seeing water coming literally up through the floor, like percolating through the concrete?
Yes.
Right. And then I'm seeing the same thing where I live now, Parker Ave, similar kind of situation where the water is actually coming up through the floor. So I guess the question, just based on my own experience, is does the cutting channels into that concrete floor and directing it to a sump hole with a pump solve that? Because the water's always going to come with those rainy seasons, those heavy rainy seasons, where it's, I guess it's groundwater.
Yeah.
That's flowing through
we
clay.
started to take notes of the weather and when it was happening, and it was very consistent with a bunch of days of rain in a row. So we have enough data to show us it was definitely just groundwater building up where the earth just could not accept it anymore, and it found the first place to go was up. And yeah, doing the sump it's a solution to prevent water from getting in places where it isn't. But I agree that it doesn't solve the issue. It
Manages it.
manages it. So
Yeah.
that's why I hope that this company can come out and shed some light to do this other repair that seemed to work so well at the police station.
Right. What's the name of the company?
It was 2012. I think I emailed the email recently, but I think they've been sold. So I think the subsidiary or whoever.
I'll circle back with you guys anyway. Just I'm curious for myself. And then what is the amount for the project?
Well, so I was originally asking 20 because that would cover us for the sump installation and French drain. So depending on which way, based on how much the police station cost, I'm venturing to guess it'll be less than doing a sump and French drain. And just for your information, it's called the Waterproofing Company.
Okay, and so what's the amount that we should consider for the water intrusion in the high school?
Was the value on that email I sent recently? I would keep the same 20,000 for now until we estimate from them.
Yeah, so the budget on the police station that you sent me for 2012 was roughly $3,000. We're probably more 4 times the space than the police station. And I don't know what their price increases have been in the last 10 years or so, but the 20 will carry us for the other sump pump solution.
Okay, and the name of the company was what again?
The Waterproofing Company.
Thank you.
Ralph, any questions on this one, or should we move on?
No, I'm good with this one. I think it's a great solution. I think I'm glad to hear you coming up with some creative ideas here. I do think it's probably better to stop the water rather than channel it. So I absolutely agree with that approach.
Francine, any questions? Okay, let's move on to the next item.
So next will be the library roof. This is another building that was at the top of the list for a great candidate and in need of replacing the rubber membrane. The current roof is 25 years plus, give or take, which is definitely over what the EPDM roofs are rated to, and we've been seeing a large increase in this roof of leaks that are developing, which is especially concerning on a roof like that where there's really no trees over it. It doesn't get a lot of traffic because we have no rooftop units up there. So these are just those rubber roofs over the years that kind of wear down, like anything will erode. So it gets thinner, 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 and then it doesn't take much to get little punctures or the seams will start coming apart. We, after the roof assessment, discovered a whole handful of wet insulation and problem areas. So part of the next step was to mitigate those. So all the wet insulation was removed, repaired, and new patches put on. So we would obviously do another infrared scan to see if we developed any more since then. But if not, it's an absolute perfect candidate for this reinforcing system. The other issue, and why I'm heavily leaning towards that, is to do an actual replacement on this roof triggers a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't want to get into. Because of the design of the roof, we would have to remove all existing insulation and raise it 5 to 6 inches to get a different pitch. Because once you start removing the insulation, you're required by code to almost triple it. And that would require extensive raising of curbs, flashing details around the edges. The engineering costs increase 4 to 5 times at that point. And like I said, the replacing of roof, $55 to $65 a square foot as opposed to 17 to 20. There's a secondary part to this particular roof that's over the children's room. It's kind of a valley rubber roof where a bunch of pitched roofs meet. That roof, unfortunately, is totally failed, needs to be totally removed and repitched, because as of right now, I don't know how it happened over the years or if it was just installed this way, but it actually pitches slightly backwards. So it's a pond almost at all times. And that one's a little more expensive. So a great little comparison for why this coating system is kind of the way to go. The lower section, which is roughly 500 square feet, that would have to be totally replaced.
Mhm.
That's roughly $35,000 to replace just for a 500 square foot section, whereas the upper roof is 8,000 square feet, and that's going to be give or take 160,000. So you can just see the immense savings that you get with doing this fluid applied system. And again, you still carry the same exact 20-year warranty. Any punctures, anything for the next 20 years, and they come out and fix it for free. And that is what this project is. The other thing too is, so the slate roof is not in the worst shape in the world. And by fixing these rubber roofs and kind of taking them off our plate, we'll be better able to service the slate roof like it should be serviced. And slate roofs, just by nature, just require constant kind of upkeep. So as a slate cracks, you replace it. And this will enable us to really keep up and extend the life.
Okay. This coding process, I assume it's got sort of widespread deployment, references, credibility. This isn't something kind of new and creative that we're.
No. Yeah, they've been using it for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it basically like goes right on over an EPDM roof. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. So
does it chemically weld to the EPDM?
Yeah. So they do a prep process to the EPDM. Then they roll on a first layer of this. Then they roll on large sheets of fiberglass, and then they do a second roll on to adhere the fiberglass. He actually brought me a bunch of samples. I honestly couldn't believe how thick it was. Like,
right.
I even took a screwdriver and tried to get through it, and very impressed.
So is that why the fiberglass is there, basically to make this? It's basically armor for the base layer.
Yeah, it adds that reinforcement.
Okay.
And again, we're taking all the seams out of it because the EPDM comes in 10 to 15 wide foot rolls.
Yep.
So you have a seam every so
Sure.
often, and that's where you're getting a lot of fail points.
Right.
And any curbing where there's a lot of seams and stuff, this goes right up total, it's like a bathtub at that point.
Okay. I don't know a whole lot about roofs, so I'll ask you, Ralph, any questions? You're on mute, sir.
What happens on my muting prompt, unfortunately, it gets blocked by, Microsoft's Windows pops up a little thing, and I can't get at it. But anyway, okay. I know a lot about roofs. Both my own house, which is a flat roof, and it's an EPDM roof, and I can tell you all about leaks and how they happen. I've seen every one that possibly can happen.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I can even tell you what raccoons can do to a fragile roof, or a squirrel can do to a fragile roof, right? They'll rip it right up, make nothing of it. Anyway, that aside, I also managed the condominium in Cambridge for a while, and we had the same questions about EBPM. I guess the question on this one has come up in the past, and certainly came up in the condominium, is this a different color when you get through with it? A lot of them are white rather than the black that you get from a typical rubber roof. And you'll have to unmute too, Nick.
Nick, now you're on mute.
God, you're terrible. I know. We actually have our choice of like 20 colors.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of fun stuff. We tend, or he recommends a kind of light gray because it adds to your summer cooling and such. It reflects that sun a lot better than the black roofs. So that's what he recommends. But
And what color are the shingles? They're kind of a darker, like a charcoal gray, right? Or are they actually light gray?
well, yeah, those are just natural stone slate.
Yeah.
So they vary. There's all sorts of purples and blues and grays, and yeah. I will say though that this roof you cannot see unless you're above it. So.
The other thing with regard to this reverse flow that you've got in the valley, a lot of times that occurs because people have put a tapered insulation. This is foam insulation, which is improperly installed and now is collapsing. I mean, that's very typical for that kind of problem.
Yeah, in the amount of leaks we've had on that one, that's what they're guessing too, is that it's so compromised at this point that we need to remove it. And to properly slope, they're actually going to take out 5 rows of slate shingle in order to get the pitch that they need in that location.
All right. Okay, thanks.
And just to confirm the amount, what I see on the spreadsheet is 350,000. Is that correct?
I had 210 on the request form.
On the spreadsheet, I see library roof 350.
Yeah, that's right.
Is this the request form?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Actually, I'm not looking at the request form. I'm looking at the capital budget select board plan for fiscal 23. It's a single sheet.
You probably wouldn't have seen it, Nick, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly.
It was just a summary spreadsheet that Michelle pulled together for the select board, but it sounds like we may need to just go through and double reconcile the numbers.
Is it possible that could have been an old number from a full replacement?
Okay.
210?
I know that's increased immensely over the past few years too.
Okay, so the number's 210. The request number is 210.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I don't have any further questions on this. Francine, any questions? Okay. Right, Nick.
All right. Next is the fire station garage door openers.
Okay.
This came to light this past year, where one of the bay's doors, they break here and there. They're very old. Turned out that it completely failed. So we had to get a full replacement because they do not make parts for these anymore. They are well past their useful life. And unfortunately, any old stock on replacements are long gone. So we had to do a full replacement. The problem with that was we had a 10 to 12 week lead time. So it's a fire station. That's not good. Luckily, it was bay 6, which is a back bay for a truck that they very rarely use, which worked out very nicely. So I got to talking with the garage door company to pick their brain on it, because it got me a little concerned on if it was like the ambulance bay or the main engines. And he said they're all pretty much in that world where we won't be able to do any preventive maintenance to prevent them from breaking in a way that we cannot repair. And the lead time to me is a little bit unacceptable to leave a fire station. So I kind of want to get ahead of it and replace the remaining 5 bay garage door openers with new ones. While also adding some electric to the ceiling, because we have to change the power requirements to these. It's not the biggest project in the world electrically. It's just, you know, while we're up there adding an outlet, we're going to add more than one. So pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Okay, so there's 5 of them. They're $4,000 a pop, 20 grand total.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that covers all, you know, the electrical asides and
Right.
anything like that.
Okay. Any questions?
I guess
Go,
Nick,
Francine.
for me, the question would be, is it the door or is it the motor drive? What are we talking about?
The motor drive.
Motor drive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know that there was a major project. We found out our doors were inadequate in size for the fire engines a few years ago.
Oh, right.
That. And so we replaced all those doors for a
Yeah,
large.
no, the doors are in great condition. They actually did some mass save sealing for energy on those two, and
Okay.
just the
So,
openers. Yep.
my experience with those garage door openers is nothing wrong with the motor. There isn't anything wrong, but all the other parts associated with it are failing. That's the real problem.
Yeah,
The motors
and
are-
when they break, they catastrophically break.
That's right. So it isn't the motor, it's all the other stuff associated with it. Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Okay. On to the next item.
All right. This next one is air conditioning for the DPW building. So this would be supplying air conditioning to 6 spaces in between the office space, break room, bathroom. So that area of the DPW. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the layout. They do not have any central AC at all in this building.
Okay.
It gets very hot in there in the summer. What we are proposing is to put, doesn't mean it's going to be this, but just for lack of a better term, the split Mitsubishi heat pumps.
Yep.
Which is great because it also gives us the added benefit of being able to heat the space if we need to in a pinch. So it gives us a little redundancy in that area.
And just as an aside, Nick, when you do a split system like this with whatever it is, 3 or 4, heads in the various rooms, what's kind of the breakdown between the cost of the equipment versus the labor? Because I'm guessing the equipment's not that expensive, but it costs quite a bit to actually do the install.
Yeah, especially this building. They did not leave a lot of room to run AC lines in the ceiling.
Okay.
The labor is definitely, to quote the contractor, not going to be very fun. So, yeah, the labor is definitely the biggest issue on this one.
Is it 1/3, 2/3, or is it 50-50, or how do you think about it?
I would say 50-50, to be honest.
Okay.
But I think that would be
$15,000.
abnormal than usual.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And we're still kind of debating on if we're going to do 2 outdoor units at 3 heads a piece, or if we're gonna do 3 outdoor units. The cost actually doesn't change that much. It's more of a logistical thing. But it kind of depends on how we're gonna route stuff and where we're putting the units outside. We're a little limited there because we have to put them in the back of the building. We can't put them up front, which obviously has to make it more difficult, because why would the easy thing work?
Right. Okay, any questions? Michael? Ralph?
Well, I got a lot of experience in this one too. I have 2 of them, okay? So my experience with these things is they are only practical if you can route the feed and the return copper lines plus the drain line in a practical manner. In other words, the big issue with these is you can actually get the copper lines almost anywhere, but you can't get the drain lines where you want them. Basically, that's the problem. To give you a sense of the cost of these things, mine does about half my house, so it probably does maybe 1,700 square feet, 1,800 square feet, something like that. Cost $10,000. I have the most recent Mitsubishi one, the one that takes you down to minus 13 degrees, and you can still run it.
Yeah, it's the hyperheat.
That's right. So I can run mine, although it's quite frankly, you're just burning electricity at that point.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's a pretty nice piece of equipment. It's extremely efficient, but they shouldn't cost anything like what I'm hearing. The actual unit itself, the exterior compressor, basically, is in the order of $3,000 or $4,000. They're really not expensive. And the air handlers on the inside, which I'm sitting underneath one right now, I don't know, they're $700 or $800. I mean, there's a lot of money, it sounds like, for something that maybe doesn't fit very well in that environment. So I'd ask you to take a look at that. I don't think the cost, that's a very high price for something that doesn't really cost that much to install. And mine has 3 heads on a single unit. So it's exactly the same thing. But we were able to route everything outside, the outside of the house. All the pipes go on the outside. They come in through external walls and directly into the air handlers. That's the way it works. Works beautifully. I love them. You're right. You can use them in cold temperatures, and you can get a fair amount of heat out of them if you want to. Even in these very cold temperatures, they work pretty well. They're great for air conditioning, and they are quite efficient, as it turns out, particularly the Mitsubishi. And they're dead quiet. They're absolutely dead quiet. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. So I'd think very carefully about whether or not that's the right solution, if in fact you have a really tough drain line issue associated with them, because that is what really makes it almost impossible to run these things unless you can do everything from the external, from outside, and run them straight into wherever the air handler is. It's usually how you have to do it. So anyway, I have a lot of experience with it. I've got 3 on one side, 3 on the other here. So.
Yeah, we're kind of basing the price. So we've done this in 2 places recently. The fire station dormitories, that was 10 grand. That's 3 heads on a unit outside. Yep. And then we just did the Deer Hill band rooms. Yep. So that is 4 units. They're a little larger over there, and that was 24,000. So basing this on doing 6 heads inside with the added annoyances of the space, that's kind of where the pricing is coming from.
Okay.
So it's basically twice the system.
The only question always, is there a better option? So I know why I'd pick a split system too if I were doing it, but is there a better option, a less costly option here? So.
Right.
Michael, Francine, any questions?
Good.
Okay. On to the next.
So this is just this one kind of has morphed a little bit. Just a new vehicle for facilities. The original idea was to utilize EV incentives and get the new Ford F-150 Lightning, which is a full 100% electric truck. Unfortunately, since this idea came about, they have completely shut off any ordering of those for probably about 1.5 years.
Wow.
Just based on the demand for them. So we won't be seeing that anytime soon. So it kind of morphed, but the facilities department is in need of just more vehicles based on kind of what COVID has done to our workflow. Our department model, much to my chagrin, 3 years ago, was, there were 2 people in a truck going to do calls and whatnot. COVID forced us apart, and we adjusted as so. So now we've gotten very used to everybody on the team is off doing their own thing. Meeting contractors doing this, so we're increasing our workload immensely. So if the world ever goes back to normal, I don't foresee us changing our model at this point. And at the current state and staffing level, myself and the assistant director, we use our personal trucks at work every day, and we use them like we literally use them, with putting stuff in the bed of the truck, all that kind of stuff. So we're definitely in need.
Okay. So we were chipping through some replacements, I know, over the past couple of years. We bought 1, or was it 2 new trucks?
For us?
Yeah.
1. Yep.
Okay.
And that was replacing one that is getting traded in for that one, because it was officially taken off the road on us. So.
Okay. I mean, I remember it as a dead vehicle fundamentally.
Yeah.
Based on prior descriptions.
Yeah.
So really, we were at a point where we were down to 2 functional trucks.
Yeah.
And
we should have 3 soon.
Okay.
The truck that we ordered, we were supposed to be getting a Ram, and what happened was the Rams stopped giving municipal dealers trucks, so we weren't going to see it for over a year at this point.
Okay.
But they had an F-250 on the lot, which is totally fine. Same exact truck, except it's a Ford, which personally I actually prefer the Fords. I think they're much better for plowing. They last a little longer from my experiences. So nothing changed on that part of it, but we still haven't gotten the truck. It's being outfitted with the utility body and stuff. I'm not exactly sure when we're going to get that quite yet, but.
Okay. So we have a 3rd truck coming.
Yes.
Okay. Which we really haven't had a 3rd operational truck in our fleet in quite a while.
Yeah.
So this would be basically increasing the fleet to 4 operating trucks from kind of the current 2.
Correct.
Okay. And between the new one that's coming in plus the new one that's being requested, is the idea that would entirely replace the use of personal vehicles that's experienced right now, or how do we think?
If we doubled somebody up, yes. Yeah. So if we get back to like a normal world, then yes. We've been utilizing one of the electric cars here and there when we can.
Okay.
The problem with that is obviously that person can't do anything heavy duty, anything truck related.
Right.
So it's useful. Certain times of the year we can't use those because other departments use those on a daily basis.
Yep.
Assessors and whatnot. So it's definitely, it helps, but definitely not a long-term solution.
Okay.
Just to answer that a different way, there's 6 staff, right, Nick, in the facilities.
Correct.
So with this request, it would be 4 trucks to 6 staff. With the other truck that we're waiting for. So.
Right. Yeah, I guess I don't have any ability to individually. I don't have any ability to process sort of like, how many trucks do you need based on heads? I just don't really have any way of conceptualizing that. So I'm really just asking.
Our department's unique in that aspect where we're meeting contractors a lot, and nothing in my eyes is kind of more annoying than having two people go meet a contractor. It's just not an efficient use of time.
Use
So,
of time,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we're it's hard to quantify, but when you look at our work orders that we've completed from 2 years ago to now, it's absolutely it's ridiculous how much more work we get done. It's easier to just have people go responding to emergencies.
You get it done. Yeah. Yeah.
How are
Okay.
these trucks being used? If we're adding trucks, are we right sizing ourselves? You know, is an F-250 too much? If you're really just, I don't know the kind of repairs you're doing off of these trucks. I really don't.
Right.
I
So
just want to make sure that if we're adding vehicles, that we really have the right vehicle for the range of jobs you guys have to do.
So that's why originally the plan was the electric F-150. So it's a lesser duty truck. You're obviously not going to be plowing with it. You're not buying a plow with it. And that's like a perfect example, as you're saying right now. We would outfit it with some utility boxes in the bed, so at least you can keep tools, supplies, and that such. But that'd be a great service vehicle where you're going out to repair something, you can still put things in the bed of the truck, but not necessarily a truck that you need for plowing.
Right.
But any truck that we do get, we outfit it with a utility body and a lift gate. Now, this is talking about if we do get an F-250. There's really, in my eyes, there's no point in getting an F-150 gas, because then you're kind of wasting the truck. In my eyes, you either get the EV, because that has added benefits of being a generator as well. That new truck is actually unbelievable. It can power a house for 3 days. So, that's a whole different added feature. But getting an F-250 with the plow, utility body, and a lift gate on the back, the amount of times we're lifting things that are hundreds and hundreds of pounds, but we do it with a push of a button now instead of having
But
to.
do you need 2 trucks fitted out that way or 3 trucks fitted out that same way?
I think it's worth it. Just based on the usage we get out of our one truck that doesn't have it. We have to pick and choose who goes to what calls, and the added cost isn't, in my eyes, enough to just get a simple truck, I guess, for lack of a better term. The EV was the big thing because we could have subsidized that, hopefully with grant money that Michelle was going to look into, and it probably would have been half the cost. That's why we were looking into that option.
So the lineup for the 4 vehicles is what exactly in terms of the make and model and snowplow, lift gate, and toolboxes?
So right now, counting the truck that is ordered and coming, we would have 2 Ford F-250s. One of them is an extended cab long bed, no utility body, no lift gate. The new one would be single cab, 8-foot bed, utility body, lift gate. And then the Ram that we have is utility body, lift gate.
Right. So which ones would carry a snowplow?
All of them.
And we already have the staff to drive them. So, and the staff actually go out and do snow plowing too?
Oh yeah. We take care of Deer Hill and Osgood.
Okay.
Yep. And any other random assists around town, depending. Like I remember when we had some, probably like 3 years ago, last time we actually got snow, we had some pretty decent storms where we needed to do some emergency plowing around that driveway. It's like the high school got blocked for some reason, and it's just nice. Actually, we had to do an emergency heat repair at the high school too, and I remember the driveway hadn't been done And we had to plow our way in to get to the school.
Right.
So it's not fun.
Just jinxed us for this weekend. Thanks, Nick.
I know, no problem. I got my snowmobile running, so I want snow.
All right, so basically, we're adding more vehicles to our fleet.
Yes.
And in general, that just makes me want to make damn sure we really do need it, rather than nice to have. So can you state why we really have to have it versus nice to have it?
I mean, it'll decrease our work getting done if we're going back to 2 people in a truck. Yeah, it's just if we want to go back to the old model, then that's what we'll do. If we don't have enough vehicles, that's basically if we're ever allowed to drive with people again.
Yeah, because it's fair to say that I think what I'm hearing, but I haven't heard you say it explicitly, is that most of what you guys do is a one-man job. Is that? It's a large number of them. I get that.
Yeah, I would say 75% one-man job. You know, anytime there's a 2-man job, it's scheduled out as such.
Right.
But yeah.
So by and large, every person in your department is going their own direction every day.
Yeah, like we have 13 buildings to take care of, 6 people. On any given day, we're bouncing around to most of those, depending on what's going on. If we have to go pick up supplies at all, then that's 1 truck out of town right there.
Right. So it sounds like you guys spend a decent amount of time ferrying each other around, dropping someone off here, picking them up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back before COVID, that was definitely, it was a lot more difficult to juggle.
And now with COVID, what are you doing?
That's
Everybody's
when,
using their own vehicles, or?
Well, that's when 2 of us just hop in our own vehicles and.
Right.
I don't know. It's not an ideal situation. I'll tell you that. I've put double the normal amount of miles on my truck. So.
Yeah, right now, Brian, we're 1 person per vehicle policy to reduce the spread and not have entire department sick out.
Right. Makes sense.
What was the price tag on this, Nick?
New trucks are running 63 to 65,000, give or take. The last one we got was like $500 under 60.
Is that the Ford that's coming?
Yes.
So that 63 to 65, does that include it outfitted the way you're suggesting?
Yeah, it would be pretty much spec'd identically. Give or take a couple little like tweaks to small things that wouldn't change anything on the pricing.
Okay.
It would be substituted.
How long do these last you, Nick, based on past fleet experience?
Well, in town, I can't tell you just because I haven't been here long enough.
Okay.
But 10 to 20 years, basically. I mean, the truck that finally died was a 97.
Okay.
So
certainly 10.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If we don't get 10 out of a truck, I'd be very upset.
Well, I imagine we don't rack up huge miles on these. It's probably more an issue of just age and corrosion.
Yeah, age, corrosion, and plowing doesn't do any.
Plowing is rough.
Yeah.
Plowing's rough. Okay, fair point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to do this, but in my head, I'm just processing sort of the mathematics of, what does it cost us to, have a layer of inefficiency, in Nick's staff, and there's like, this pretty material number associated with it, over the course of a year, and certainly over the course of 10 years, right? I don't know, if you just take one person and spend whatever, say it's 5% of his time, or 10% of his time, sort of Ubering colleagues around to job sites whereas they should just be working independently. It pretty quickly pays for it. I'm just thinking out loud. I could see that math pretty quickly paying for a truck.
Okay.
And certainly over the course of 10 years. But that's just kind of instinctive without actually pushing any numbers around. Questions? Anybody on this one?
I do think it's worthwhile to do some quantitative analysis on this. I understand that what you're saying, but somehow analyze the trips, do something that gives us confidence that in fact what we're expecting in the terms of efficiency really is real. I think it deserves it. We ask this of the police department with how they use vehicles. I think we have a right to ask it of yourself too. Just exactly how are they being used? Why is it quantitatively or better, in fact, to actually have vehicles rather than have people just dropped off? It's not that I object to it. I just feel that it really deserves something more when we start adding vehicles. That's all. I'm not objecting to it. I just saying make it more concrete for us. It helps a lot.
Yeah. I'll definitely put some stuff together because we can kind of base it off the work order load that we do.
That'd be great.
And the other added benefit is when we do get the utility body, what that enables us is we actually store X amount of common use parts in the truck. So we are not running back to the shop to get anything. So that's kind of another added benefit is usually anything you need is right in that truck. So you just have to run out and grab it instead of having to go all the way back and all that stuff. So
the only other thing is that if in any way you could postpone the purchase to get an electric vehicle, I would do that.
Yeah.
I totally agree. You ought to have an electric vehicle. I think it makes more sense. I know why you said it in the beginning.
Yep.
And if you could postpone, I'd do that. I'm not saying you should, but I would do it if I were in your shoes and I could live with this 1.5 year delay or whatever it will be.
Yeah. And I mean, arguably, depending on grants and any incentives, you could get 2 of those for the price of one of these.
Yeah.
Right.
So no, I agree. It was kind of tough because when I first started this, they didn't have the pricing released on the EV trucks yet. So when I called back to get the pricing, he's like, yeah, they're gone. So I was like, oh, great. So it kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. Unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
That's too bad. All right. Any other questions on this, or should we move on to the next item? Michael, Francine, anything? No? Okay.
I think that was it.
Okay. Now, Michelle suggested that you might take a crack at some of the facilities related school items, and I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, just don't have a list right in front of me.
We certainly don't expect you to talk about the school bus lease.
No.
or the athletics van. But there are a handful on here that are probably squarely you in terms of execution.
Off the
Just
top.
going to quickly jump in. I'm going to drop off right now. I've got a number of meetings tomorrow and also on Thursday. I just think this is about time to drop off. We've been on it for a long time already.
Let me ask you a question. You raise a good, you raise a good point, Ralph. It's 9:40.
Yeah. 2 hours and 40 minutes. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. We definitely got behind early on and never quite caught up. So it is getting late. I'm perfectly happy to power through this. If Michael and Francine, and most importantly, Nick, that's your preference, or we can pick up here next week. But I'm happy to stay on and power through this if you'd like to get it done, Nick. I mean, we're all here. So
I'm in work mode, so it doesn't matter to me, but
okay.
I'll defer if you want.
It's up to you. I mean, we need 3 for a quorum.
How much longer do you think it'll go? Because I do need to get to some personal stuff here.
How many items do you have that I'd be kind of involved in? Because are we gonna extensively talk about these or just kind of touch on them in a brief?
I think some of these are going to be profoundly self-explanatory, like replace damaged wet tile, ceiling tiles at Osgood,
I believe they're gonna be removing that actually.
Cove Base in the gym, retile classrooms and cafeteria,
Deer Hill, yep.
create the hallway. I mean, most of these are really quite straightforward. The only ones that I see possibly taking a little bit, tiny bit of time is perhaps the scoreboard and the PA system, but
That actually is Steve Rotundi anyway.
okay.
And then the Osgood window shades, I think that was one that I'd be handling.
That's one you would handle, or the school would be talk to that?
I'd handle all the logistics on that.
Okay. My sense here, Michael, to answer your questions, I think this is probably another 15 minutes. Some of these are going to be a minute or two each, and others are probably going to be a 5-minute conversation. It's my instinct, but I could be dead wrong.
Well,
Does that work, or you want to do this next week?
I think we should push off to next week.
Okay. Nick, is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Or whenever the schools are in. I'm not sure if it's next week or the week after. Okay.
And then, we wanted to meet with everyone, as liaisons. So I'm not sure how all that fits, but I need to get to some things here in the house.
Okay.
Before it gets much later.
All right. So we'll call it a night. Nick, I'll be back to you. Do you have a preference next week, or do you want to come when the schools come so that you're all together? I mean, I don't think the school really need to be around to talk about ceiling tiles and bathroom doors.
Yeah.
Is my instinct. I mean, I think you'll represent them well, and these are straightforward items. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm the one handling all the talking to contractors and doing all the
okay.
logistics. So
Do you want to come back next week?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I apologize that we've run out of time.
Oh no problem. As long as schools go a little later, if it's after 7:30, that's good, because I have dad duty on Mondays, so the kid goes to bed at 7:30. So once she's in
Okay,
bed,
so you'd rather be late on the agenda than early.
yeah, oddly enough.
Well, yeah, okay.
Unless you want a kid crawling on me, we could do that too.
Been there. All right. So the time is 9:42. Shall we, in similar vein, postpone the voting on the minutes until next week?
Yeah.
Just let's do that. And Michael, there was one item of business that you suggested you might want to discuss at the end. Do you want to do that tonight or next week?
Yeah, next week. I've really run out of time.
Okay, fair enough. So it's 9:42. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Night.
Okay. All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Francine?
Hi, Francine.
Ralph?
Aye.
Brian Host? Aye. We have adjourned. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for your patience.
No worries at all.